Most of us often feel like we are not being our true selves, especially creative people. We kind of have this issue with feeling like we are some sort of fraud, an imposter. So today, I want to talk exactly about that. What it is, the imposter syndrome. Okay, so first and foremost, the imposter syndrome is nothing but a psychological phenomenon that puts you in a position where you feel like people will one day realize that you are not as good as they think you are and as you portray yourself to be. This is very, very common amongst creatives, but not only. A lot of overachievers suffer from this idea that you're just putting it on. What you can play, for example, is not real. So one day people will actually bust you and they will call you out on your BS. Now the irony is, of course, that those things that you are playing, you are actually playing them. So where does this come from? From a psychological standpoint, this is also known as inferiority complex. So you see yourself as less than what you are. But from a philosophical standpoint, this can actually go a little bit deeper. Yes, it is still a lack of self-esteem and lack of self-awareness, but it is also a conflict of timelines. What does that mean? Quite simply, you're confusing and conflating where you are today with where you want to be tomorrow. And because you are an overachiever, you're constantly looking at tomorrow. And you end up forgetting where you came from, where you are today, and the steps that you've taken to be where you are today, and you suddenly forget that you will have to take as many or more steps to get to where you want to be tomorrow. So why the conflict? Well, it's very common for overachievers. I'm going to include myself in the club of the overachievers. We feel like whatever we're doing today is not enough. We have to keep pushing. Ambition and goals and plans, and that's just the way we are wired. And it takes a long time and guidance and counseling to actually make peace with the fact that it is a long life. It's a long game that we are playing. The moment you realize that, already that imposter syndrome will kind of wear out. But how does the imposter syndrome affect your life? Well, you can do two things. One, you stop actually trying to do bigger things because now you're so caught up in this idea that people will just find out that you're lying, that you're somehow just tricking them into believing that you are better than what you are. So you stop trying, you stop pushing yourself because you're just paranoid. Number two, you can actually turn this into a self-fulfilling prophecy. And whatever you think people are being fooled by, well, maybe it's time for you to actually get it done, make it real. I'm not even saying that it's not real already, but maybe you need some more confirmation, some more self-validation. Or maybe you just need some feedback. So how do you go about fixing your imposter syndrome? How do you actually tackle something that seems to be so prevalent amongst creatives? We constantly fear the idea that we will be one day found out. First, assess your flaws. I truly believe that the imposter syndrome has something to it. Maybe you're just in a conflict between the persona that you want to become and that you kind of put out there. Perhaps because of ego, perhaps because of fear, perhaps because you do at times believe that you have what it takes to become successful. But then your brain also knows that there's a lot that you are not doing. Maybe you're trying to run a business, but secretly you know that you know nothing about finances. Maybe you're trying to start a band and then you realize that you don't have the necessary work ethics to pull it off. Maybe you're trying to start a new creative project and you know that you're just trying to rely on your name or maybe reputation or something like that, when in fairness, you know nothing about what you're trying to do. I know this because I've done all of the above. I've started businesses without knowing anything about money. Zero. Nothing. And even worse, I kinda had some sort of pride in saying that I didn't know anything about money. Yeah. And then of course I was constantly paranoid that people would find out that I was a terrible businessman. Because I was. I also joined bands that I didn't belong to. Now, I do have incredible work ethic, which meant that I could kind of work my way into the standard that the band had, but I kind of lied a little bit to get into the bands, right? I'm not saying that I said actual lies, that I actually spoke them, but I lied to myself and I lied to them as a byproduct. You know, we all do that, and that conflict is what generates that imposter syndrome. You start to see yourself as less than, because you are. And that's okay, by the way. The way to fix it is to actually fill those gaps. So number one, assess your flaws. Write down exactly what you don't know, that if an expert were running your business or joining your band, what kind of qualities would that person have that you don't? So make yourself an expert by first assessing where your gaps are, where your flaws are. Number two, get to work. Start doing the work. Start filling in those gaps. Go get the knowledge, go get the skills. There's a gazillion ways you can do this. Read books, do online courses, find a coach, whatever. Number three, ask for feedback. Make yourself vulnerable. Many of these situations arise from the fact that we try to protect ourselves with ego. Get rid of that for the time being. Make yourself vulnerable and ask the question, can I do this? Do you guys think that I'm qualified to do that? And ask questions. How do I do invoices? How do I learn about money? Who should I follow? What should I read? Ask questions. Make yourself vulnerable to the fact that you don't have to know everything right now. And finally, step 4, tell the truth. Whenever you're not ready to embrace a project, just say it. Say it to yourself, say it to anyone around you. Just say it. I don't feel prepared. Do you think I can do this? You know, and it's okay to ask for some sort of validation. There's nothing wrong about that. You're not going to become weak just because you're asking for some sort of support. Why the hell would you have friends if they weren't there to support you? Now there's a caveat here that I want to add to this. You might be prepared, you might be ready, you might be actually peaking and you're bubbling to come out and be your best self, and yet you still feel that people might discover, find you out, whatever, bust you, and maybe you're not a fraud. Maybe that's just in your head, who knows? But what I do know is that if you do the work, you will see the results. And remember, it's not confidence that breeds results, it's results that breeds confidence. So when you hear that voice talk saying, oh, they will find out, they will be able to tell that I'm not that good, sit down and do the work. Shut that voice down with work. That's the only way.